Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to News Dose. And Xbox seemingly has a big new franchise on their hands, and I actually feel like this is exactly what the industry needs right now. They're kind of leading by example here, but I just hope that this is only the beginning of more to come. Now, we also have a PlayStation franchise to talk about today because people are going absolutely crazy about this online, but I do think that there's some additional context that somewhat changes the narrative. I mean, still impressive, but you do need that extra context. So stick around, and we're going to get into all of that today, plus plenty more. First, though, I do want to thank my supporters on Patreon and on YouTube memberships. Thank you just so much for what you do, and you will receive this video through early access. Let's go get right into things, though, starting off with Mario Paint's Switch Online debut. Yeah, you heard that right. Mario Paint is officially back, and really in a pretty big way here. Nintendo seems to be highlighting this release more so than most other Switch Online games, and there's absolutely a reason for that. They dropped a 4-minute overview trailer, and the reason is because it takes advantage of the Switch 2's mouse-like functionality. This is really one of the best games that you can possibly play on the Switch 2 if you want to take advantage of that feature. Now, you can still play this on the Switch 1 with a USB mouse if you want, but this is clearly targeting the Switch 2 and its unique Joy-Con 2s. I mean, really, ever since they revealed its mouse-like feature, Mario Paint was a game that immediately popped up in the conversations quite a bit, and here it is. It's available right now as we speak, and for anybody who has nostalgia for that game, this really might be the best way to play it going forward. Now, speaking of subscriptions, PlayStation Plus has a great game in store for the month of August. If you're subscribed, you're going to get access to DayZ, My Hero 1's Justice 2, and the big one that everybody needs to pay attention to is Lies of P. Now, this game released, I want to say back in late 2023. Correct me if I'm wrong about that, but it was actually a Game Pass game back then. So this is the second subscription service that it'll have come to, but if you haven't already played Lies of P, you absolutely need to change that. It's really one of the best Souls-likes that you can possibly play. It's most similar to Bloodborne, which I think is an added bonus in this case, just considering that Sony, for whatever reason, just won't update that game to 60 frames per second. Come on, Sony, let's fix that. But whatever the case, Lies of P can, somewhat fill that void, though at the same time, it's still its own thing. It's similar, but still different in its own ways. Either way, it's an incredible game, and in my opinion, really one of the only Souls-likes that can rival what From Software does with their own games. So if you're interested, it'll be available on August 5th, and just as an added bonus, I also think that Lies of P is one of the best games to take advantage of the PlayStation 5 Pro, if that's something that you own. Oh, and we got some more information for the upcoming ROG Xbox Ally. As we talked about yesterday, Xbox plans to showcase it at Gamescom, which I think will be cool for fans that are able to go there. They can get some hands-on impressions, which is always nice. But now we're also hearing that Gamescom could be the place where we get its official pre-order and pricing information, which I think makes a lot of sense in this case. We know that it's coming sometime in 2025, and I really can't think of a better place to talk about that information. Well, now, thanks to Bilbokun, he leaked the alleged pre-order date and prices, or at least over in Europe, which will be on August 20th for €600 or €900, depending on the model that you want. Now, it is important to keep in mind that currency doesn't always translate one-to-one to other regions. Some people are taking this information and running with the idea that it'll be $1,000+ because of conversion rates over to the United States. But that's not really how this type of stuff works. Each region decides pricing based on multiple different factors. So it is best to wait for an official price announcement for each individual region. But if I were to guess, and this is just me speculating, but I'd say it's probably going to be similar to the regular ROG Ally and ROG Ally X, which are currently going for $650 and $900 on Best Buy. So, I mean, either which way, it's going to be more expensive than your typical home console, which might surprise some people that don't play on PC gaming handhelds. But yeah, PC gaming handhelds are quite expensive, which is one of the reasons that I never really thought the Switch 2 was overpriced when it was first announced. I mean, its games, on the other hand, $80, that's a little bit of a different story. But in terms of hardware, I mean, handheld technology just isn't very cheap. I want to hear from you all, though. Are you interested in the ROG Xbox Ally? And if you are, will it be your first PC gaming handheld? Now, since we're on the topic of Xbox, let's just go and get into the big news here. And I want to talk about this specifically because I think this isn't only great for Xbox, but also for gamers and really for the game industry as a whole. Now, I'll explain that here in just a moment, but Grounded 2 launched into early access today, and it's already reached nearly 50,000 concurrent players on Steam, which is incredibly impressive for a game like this, especially when you start to dive a little bit deeper. First off, it's a Game Pass game, so a lot of people are going to be playing over there instead, so you have to kind of keep that in mind. But it's also an early access game that launched in the middle of the week, so it could actually grow more as we head towards the weekend when gamers are a little bit more available to play it. But also, a lot of people just kind of avoid early access titles, and yet even with all of that, Grounded 2 still managed 50,000 concurrent players in its first few hours, which not only is more than the original Grounded at 32,000 players, but it's also just 1,000 shy of being Obsidian's biggest game ever on Steam in terms of concurrent players. That means that it's performing better than games like Avowed and The Outer Worlds, and I think that right there is the really cool thing about a franchise like Grounded. You know, I don't think that it had as high of expectation as games like that. This isn't some big, huge game with a massive budget. It's a smaller scale series. In fact, the first game, that was actually made by a very small and passionate team. I believe it was less than 20 people at the time, and it ended up turning into a big surprise hit for them, to the extent that a sequel like this could eventually be made. So here's this small franchise that focuses on gameplay first. It didn't cost $300 million to make like a lot of modern AAA games, and yet it's lighting up the charts once again. And that's one of the reasons that I want to talk about this game, because in my opinion, we need more games like this from big-time publishers. The fact that this game exists in the first place is honestly quite amazing when you start to think about it, because there's not a lot of modern AAA publishers that would have greenlit a franchise like this. We're in an era when a lot of these publishers are throwing just a ridiculous amount of money at their AAA games, and they're paying less attention than ever to smaller scale titles, which I just don't think is sustainable. I'm going to go ahead and use Astropot as an example. It was another smaller scale game that was heavily praised as a good thing for the industry, and it ended up selling around 3 million units, and it's likely going to continue to grow more over time. However, I've seen some people scoff at that 3 million number, which always baffles me, because that's actually really good when you consider that its budget is a fraction of the cost of what a lot of modern AAA games are, and it also took a fraction amount of time to make. I mean, I'll put it this way. Is it better to sell 3 million copies for a game that had, let's say, an $80 million budget and was created in 3 years, or to sell 6 million copies of a game that cost $300 million to make and was in development for 6 years? So yes, I think budgets and development time are extremely important to keep in mind, and it's something that I hope to see more publishers become aware of. These smaller scale games can absolutely be successful if you make a good game, and they can help bridge the gap between their bigger releases. I mean, they can still release their big AAA games in the hopes that they'll become the next big thing, that they're going to sell 10, 15, 20 million copies. But it's important to get those base hits as well. And that's where games like Grounded 2 and Astropot comes in. I do think that games like these are very important for the game industry, for gamers, and just everybody involved. And that's why it's so nice to see them have success like this. Let's move on here, though, because we are going to go and talk about a big AAA PlayStation franchise today, being the Horizon series. It was revealed that it's now surpassed 38 million units sold, and people are going crazy over this online. And I've seen a lot of "I told you so" type of comments on social media, not necessarily towards me, because I've never even talked about this topic before, But there is this idea that's been going around these past few years that Sony holds the Horizon series in higher regards than fans do. And this 38 million number proves otherwise, that Sony was in fact right. However, there is a little bit more to this story because allegedly 25 million of that 38 million comes from Horizon Zero Dawn. So in other words, that means that the first game has sold more than double of the rest of the series, which includes Horizon Forbidden West, Lego Horizon, and Horizon Call of the Mountain. So even though 38 million is very impressive, there's no doubt about that, but there, however, has been a significant drop-off from Game 1 to the rest of the series. So I think with that information, there should be a question as to why that's the case. Now, I actually enjoyed Forbidden West a lot, so I'm not really in that camp that just really dislikes this game. But the fact is that it's not selling anywhere near the amount that the first game did. So is that because it's been out for less time? Is it because people just didn't like the first game enough to buy into the sequel? Is it because of the main character? I know a lot of people find her to be boring, and some people don't like her new design in the sequel. Or is it because the first game had some bundles? And if that last one is true, then you can also kind of make an argument that 38 million number is possibly inflated a bit. How much did it sell without those bundles? So, like I said, I think there is a little bit more context to this number than just, hey, they sold 38 million, which is why those I told you so type of comments stands out to me. I'll ask you all, though, how do you view the drop-off from Game 1 to Game 2? Anyways, though, that's going to be it with this episode, but until next time, make sure to subscribe, ring that bell, and peace out.